my hero story. This is about a gentleman named Ted Isaacs. He was 44 years my senior and incredibly influential in my life, as well as a very dear friend until his death in 2007. I met Ted 40 years ago when I applied for a job at his industrial products company. His father died when he was 2. His father died of pneumonia. He grew up in Louisville. And when his father died, his mother's family wanted her to put Ted up for adoption because he was going to be a burden, with her being a single mother. And his paternal grandfather took Ted and his mother in, and Ted was raised by his grandfather, his mother, and a maiden aunt. And I sometimes think that maybe that feminine role in his life and having a grandfather, I think as a grandparent you have a different perspective on life, and he was brought up in a very small Jewish community, and he moved to Cincinnati to go to UC to become an engineer. I was a student at UC, and I was in the women's restroom one day, and I overheard a classmate telling another girl that she was working for a company where she had been part-time, and that they were looking for more employees. And so I asked her if she'd take my resume in. And a few days later, I received a phone call from Ted Isaacs, and I went in, and the first thing he said was, "I am not going to hire anybody today. I want to interview quite a few people. It's a new position, and but I'm going to interview you and do some testing." And an hour and 45 minutes later, he offered me the job.
Are you serious?
We couldn't have been more different, but we clicked just like that. It was wonderful. He was very different from any man that had ever been in my life. He was very different from my father. In fact, he used to tell my father when my dad would stop in that he was sure that I was part Jewish. And my dad would, just kind of chuckle and off he'd go. And Ted taught me more about business and dealing with people. And he was a compassionate, very slow to anger man, very different from my dad that way. And he just had a way of connecting with young people. I was, in my early 20s. It was back in the 1970s. Things were different back then for women, especially working in a really male-dominated world of industrial sales. It's hard to put into words 30 years of day-to-day interaction, but the opportunities that he gave me to stretch beyond maybe what I thought I could do. He had me one time I testified in court. I was probably 22 years old, nervous as could be, and there was a court case that our company was involved in, and he sent me to testify on the behalf of the company, just always asking everybody who worked for him to strive. After he retired and my partners and I bought the company, we still kept a room for him that he could use as an office because we wanted him around. He was just that person in my life. Without it sounding cliche, I think we should just treat people the way we want to be treated and respect that not everybody's going to agree with us. That doesn't mean they're wrong. That's, people's beliefs are the culmination of every life experience they've had up to that point. And we can never really know where people's viewpoints are formed in their lives. And I think Ted, being Jewish, he was one of the few Jewish men in the industrial field that we were in. And occasionally some anti-Semitism would come out, but he brushed it off. he brushed it off and figured, you know what, it was their loss, because he treated them well, whoever the other person was. And I just thought it was remarkable that he survived. I think I was a different parent than I would have been without Ted. I, you know, I really tried to adopt his, just the way he was with people and his forgiving nature. I try. I don't always succeed. Jesus, God, the good Lord, whatever, however you refer to him, I do think he's there in even just the tiniest little seeds of your life, and you have to be aware of what's happening around you. You know, the people that come into your life that maybe are difficult people, but they're difficult for reasons that we can never know. You know, maybe the little bit extra grace that we can give them. Because you just never know where those relationships can go and what might come out of them. If there's one thing good about getting older, I look back on my life and it's almost like a little jigsaw puzzle. And I think to myself, you know, it was such a chance meeting to meet this person or that person. And in my heart, I know God puts people in our path for a reason. And I do believe that we will find out someday why these people were put in our path. What did they do for us? And maybe we did something for them that we just will, you know, not know until then. scientist, and he felt that the world was most likely a statistical accident, that there was just not a scientific reason that the world could be this miracle, that this being that you cannot see, probably not quite old enough to be a grandfather. And to me, and I was very liberal that I really knew. This was so shortly after the time that Roe v. Wade became law. There were a lot of big changes happening in the 1970s in this country. The Vietnam War just ended. He was incredibly liberal. I was brought up incredibly conservative. And whichever one of us goes first, when the other one gets to heaven, we get different religions, and yet we had this connection. So I think after he did retire, but the Jewish faith, my partners and I bought the company, we still kept a room for him that he could use as an office that they recognize the way we do.
Right. So, I mean, I think the last question